I'm Sophia White, Brand Alignment Architect, and today we're breaking down what has been called one of the most expensive marketing disasters in recorded history. We are talking about a strategic blunder that incinerated hundreds of millions of dollars in brand equity overnight. Some modern estimates place the fatal damage, adjusted for inflation, at well over $1 billion. It took the company 15 years to recover from the hangover, and the man responsible? The executive who championed this change retired in 1985, right as the full scale of the financial disaster was becoming undeniable. I'm talking about the death of Datsun, but this is not just a story about cars. This is a masterclass in what happens when your business strategy ignores human psychology. It is a case study of what happens when leadership, branding, and sales fail to talk to each other. Today, we are analysing the Nissan rebrand failure through a modern lens. We are going to deconstruct exactly how they fell into the branding trap. And I'm going to show you why deleting a beloved brand is almost always a fatal error.
The first Datsun car came into the world in 1933, just as the first date of Nissan Motor Company Limited was written. For 40 years since that time, Nissan has developed steadily.
If you look at the business case of Datsun turning into Nissan, on the surface it seems completely logical. In the 1970s, Datsun wasn't just a car company, it was a powerhouse in the US market. It stood for reliability, economy, and thanks to the legendary Z cars, it stood for affordable performance. Datsun had done the impossible. They had cracked the American market at a time when made in Japan was looked down upon. So why kill it? Why take a winning lottery ticket silver bullet brand and throw it into the trash? Later in this video, I'm going to share my proprietary Sales Enablement Trifecta. It's a model that explains exactly how a disconnect between Tokyo's executives and the American car dealers cost them a decade of growth. But first, we have to look at the official narrative. The official narrative was global unification. Japanese executives in Tokyo wanted every car worldwide to wear the corporate name, Nissan. They wanted the stock market to recognize the parent company. It sounds like a decent corporate strategy on paper. Clean up the portfolio, one name, one stock ticker. But in reality, it was a catastrophic failure of sales enablement. In my analysis, true success comes from bridging the gap between three distinct areas: branding, sales, and leadership. When you break that bridge, you lose money. Nissan had the cars, the product was excellent, but they destroyed the bridge. Let's look at the branding trap they fell into. Let's start by auditing the brand assets. Visually, Datsun was incredibly strong for its era. In the US market, the name Datsun felt approachable. Phonetically, it was sharp. It sounded almost German or American. It didn't feel foreign to the 1970s buyer. The typography was distinct. It had weight. It used that specific serif font that felt like a car that you could trust. It had shoulders. Then they switched to Nissan. Look at the typography difference. This is what I call the branding trap. We see this today in the tech industry. Every startup logo looks the same: simple, sans serif, lowercase, and boring. Nissan did this 40 years ago. They took a brand with heritage and grit and emotional connection, and they replaced it with a corporate holding company name using a font that looked more like it belonged on a bank statement than a sports car. The Nissan logo of that era lacked personality. It was clinical and it was just text. Typography is identity. When you change the font, you change the voice of the brand. Datsun shouted fun, fast and frugal, whereas Nissan whispered corporate structure. By stripping away the Datsun name, they didn't just change the letters on the cars, they erased the emotional container that held 20 years of American goodwill. They assumed the product would carry the brand. This is a critical lesson. In a crowded market, the product keeps the customer, but the brand is what gets the salesperson their first appointment. They deleted the very thing that got people onto the car lot. What Nissan misunderstood was positioning discipline. Datsun occupied a very clear position in the American market: affordable, reliable and sporty. When they deleted the name, they didn't just remove a logo, they erased the position customers held in their minds. Here is the strategic tragedy. Datsun didn't need to die. If we look at modern portfolio architecture, Datsun should have remained what we call a silver bullet brand within their portfolio. Now, a silver bullet brand is your marketing genius. They change minds, solve problems, and give your whole portfolio the explosive growth that gets attention for your company. These brands move the needle. Think about Toyota. When they wanted to launch a luxury car, they didn't call it the Toyota expensive car. They created Lexus. They understood the different names served different demographics. When they sell the Corolla, they don't force the corporate name Toyota Motor Corporation down your throat. They let the brand name breathe. Nissan already had this perfect setup. Datsun was their entry-level sports connector. Nissan could have been the parent company. The endorser brand, like General Motors, allowing Datsun to thrive as the consumer-facing hero, like Chevrolet. My question to you is, would you have deleted the Datsun brand knowing these numbers? If they had spent that same budget promoting the new Datsun Maxima or the new Datsun Z, they would have dominated the 80s. Instead, they threw away a well-loved brand that was already hitting the target. Instead, they forced the hard cutover. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the name is Nissan campaign. Think about the waste involved here. They spent a fortune telling people that the brand they loved was gone. They paid for TV spots, billboards and radio ads, not to sell cars, but to explain a corporate name change. If they had spent the same budget promoting the new Datsun Maxima or the new Datsun Z, they would have dominated the 80s. Instead, they threw away a brand that was already hit the mark and well loved. Now, before we get into the Trifecta framework that explains why this leadership decision failed so hard, I want to address the elephant in the room. Building a brand identity today is harder than ever because the market is so noisy. You don't want to fall into the blanding trap like Nissan did, creating a brand identity that looks like everyone else and disappears into the background. If you enjoy these breakdowns, you'll probably like my newsletter Clarity Memo Issue 1. Each issue explains one strategic insight behind positioning, alignment, and authority. You can subscribe below. Okay, let's get into the core strategy. Why did this happen? It comes down to a breakdown in what I call the Sales Enablement Trifecta. We have this top circle labelled leadership. This represents the guidance, vision, and direction provided to the team. In the Nissan case, this was the Toyota executives. Their goal was global unification. That was the directive. They were looking at spreadsheets and not on the streets. On the left, we have the circle branding. This is the identity and perception of the company. As we discussed, the Datsun brand was strong, it was warm, and it was trusted. But leadership ignored this data. They treated branding as a logo, not as a reputation. On the right, the circle, sales, this is the actual process of selling products. These were the US dealerships. The people physically standing on the car lot, trying to put keys in customers' hands. Now look at where the overlap. The red zone in the middle is sales enablement. True sales enablement only happens where leadership, branding, and sales all intersect and work together. Nissan's failure was that leadership, top, pushed a mandate that branding, left, knew was a mistake, which made the job of sales, right, impossible. Imagine being a dealer in 1983. You have a customer coming into the car lot asking for a Datsun. The customer trusts Datsun. You now have to stop them and say, no, we don't sell Datsuns anymore, we sell Nissans. The customer asks, but what is a Nissan? Is it cheaper? Is it worse? The dealers had to spend valuable time, sometimes 20 to 30 minutes per customer, explaining corporate strategy instead of closing the deal. When leadership creates friction for sales by ignoring brand equity, you don't have enablement, you have disconnection. That is exactly what the 1 billion price tag represents, the cost of friction introduced into the sales process. The alignment breakdown. When we analyse this through a brand alignment lens, the failure becomes obvious. 3 things must always align: positioning, identity, and sales narrative. Datsun had all 3. Nissan deleted the first 2. Brand equity is not created in boardrooms. It's created in the minds of customers. And once you erase that position, rebuilding it can take decades. I just wanted to give Will's History a shout out. I came across your video, it inspired me, and I wanted to do a video as well about Datsun, but from a brand strategy perspective. So thanks for inspiring me. Go check out Will's History, American Muscle, and great videos over there. So just go check them out. But I just wanted to end the video with a little bit from Will's History. So
the problem was fundamental. Nobody in America knew what Nissan was. To the average car buyer, Datsun was the brand they trusted. Datsun was the brand their neighbor recommended. Datsun was the brand that made that cool Z car. Nissan? Never heard of it. Is that a new company? Is it Korean? What happened to Datsun? The confusion was immediate and devastating. Dealerships reported customers walking in, looking at the Nissan badges on the cars, and asking what happened to the Datsun inventory. Some buyers actively avoided the new Nissans because they didn't recognize the brand. They assumed it was an inferior product or a completely different company. And here's what really makes me crazy about this whole thing. Nissan knew this would be a problem. They conducted studies. The research showed that brand recognition for Datsun was at 85% among American car buyers. Brand recognition for Nissan.
The aftermath wasn't quick. This wasn't a one-quarter dip. The executive who pushed this retired in 1985, leaving the mess for others to clean up. For nearly a decade, cars had badges that said Datsun by Nissan, confusing everyone. It looked indecisive, sales in the US stagnated, while Honda and Toyota were surging ahead. Nissan was busy explaining who they were. It took until the late 90s and a drastic partnership with Renault for the brand to really find its footing again globally. They lost 15 years of momentum, 15 years of compounding growth, all because they prioritized a corporate ego trip over market reality. So, what is the lesson for us? Whether you're rebranding a massive corporation or launching a new product line in a small business, you must respect the trifecta. Leadership cannot simply dictate strategy without understanding the brand equity you already have and the friction that change creates for sales. Don't, don't delete your silver bullet brands just to make the organizational chart look cleaner. Complexity in the office is fine if it means simplicity for the customer. And never ever underestimate the cost of confusing your market. Until next time.